Welcome to the Ordinary Guy Garage. I'm Scott, just an ordinary guy. And today we're going to talk about the S10 suspension, what I got in it, and I'm going to show you how to install Moroso trick springs without losing an eye. So hang tight. First of all, I'd like to take a moment and say thank you to all the new subscribers and welcome to the channel. I really appreciate it. My channel's grown really big in the past week. And man, I'm honored and I'm humbled by it. So thank you very much for everybody watching, and to the new guy, new subscriber coming in, or somebody who's just thinking, hey, let's check this dude out. You know, I'm just a do-it-yourselfer. I'm not an expert, and I mess things up a lot, and I'll tell you, if I screw something up, I'll let you know. But anyways, let's get on to this. Thank you. Thank you. That's basically what I want to say. Thank you. So, the S10 front suspension. Now, it's been a little bit of a journey with the S10, and I'll show you what we got going here. When I first bought the truck, I paid $1,800 for it with a small block in it, and my wife and I and the kids, we drove all the way up to the other side of Oregon and went and got this thing, and I drove it back at 55 miles an hour the whole way. And then that was on a Saturday, and then that Friday I raced it, you know, and you know, it was nothing. It was a slug, 14 seconds at best, and it was lowered 3 inches, 3-inch blocks in the back, and it had the old, you know, cutting torch lowering kit on the front. So I ran it like that for that season, and then that winter I went ahead and tore it apart and changed the suspension and a few things on it to make it a little safer and to make it go faster. So what I did was, and I'll show you what, and here we go with my mistakes. So I bought a set of, these are Moroso trick springs, part number 40, what are these things? 47130 or something like that. Where the heck is it? Yeah, 47130 is what the part is on them. Now I bought them, and I'm fighting with these things. I can't get the thing in there no matter what I do, you know, and it wouldn't go in. So I go to the forums, you know, on the internet, and I'm reading the forums, and I'm trying to figure this out, and guys are saying, you know, cut a coil off of them, because that's otherwise, if you don't, anyways, the truck's gonna sit up like some kind of 4-wheel drive or something. So you wanna cut that one coil off anyways. When you put it in there, it makes it a lot easier to install. And, oh, okay, all right, okay. So I did. I took my brand new set of trick springs and I cut a coil off. And they were right, it fit right in there easily. Put it all back together, I lowered the truck down, man. It was right back to the same height it was. I didn't like it at all. So there went $150 down the drain, because, you know, I cut a coil off. So I have a brand new spring with the coil cut off. And then I have, and right next to it in this box, I got another brand new spring that hasn't been cut. So there we have it. Those have been sitting around for like 7 or 8 years. Can't use them. So what I ended up doing was, I went down to the, you know, O'Reilly or whatever, the cheap auto parts store, and I bought a set of springs, stock springs. These were like 50 bucks. Popped these in there, brought the truck up to the, you know, ride height that I wanted, and I called it good, and I raced it like that for quite a while. So on my previous video where I'm showing the rear suspension, I showed how I had 3 leafs in the rear spring. I'd taken off the overload and left the 3 in there. Now with these springs, it doesn't allow for a lot of movement, and that's what you want with drag racing. You want a lot of movement. You want I can't think of the word, but you want movement. So anyways, weight transfer. I wasn't getting a lot of it like that. So I even had I had put on here some Hoosier drag radials. They were the slick, I don't know what model they were, but they were basically the street legal slick in a radial. And I ran those instead of a regular slick for a couple reasons. One, I didn't have C-clip eliminators in the rear end. And the other, or I still had C-clips at the time. And the other reason was I was racing in the DOT class. So I had to have a DOT tire. So, but what I ended up doing was, back to the rear leaf spring, I took out not only the overload, but then I went back and I took out that middle leaf. So it left only 2 leaves in there. Or leaves, whatever, however you say it. It only left 2 in there, which made it really soft, but it made a lot of, was able to get a lot of movement, and I was able to get a little better weight distribution kind of thing when I left the line, a little bit better weight transfer. And it improved the traction tremendously, and I was hooking, you know, with the stock springs and only the 2 leaves in back. And that was with my motor that was only, you know, maybe 375 or 400 horsepower. It wasn't a big power engine. So that worked pretty good. So with these springs here, but I decided last year when I put the new motor in, or the year before, I decided I wanted to go through the front suspension and loosen it up, and you know, I wanted to go back to the trick springs again. So what I did was I bought a new set of trick springs, and the other thing I did I bought new upper A arms. They're still on the truck. I pulled all those apart to do the video, so the links all go right. So anyways, what I did here on you see on the lower A-frame here, I got the bushings. Now this comes into play with the installation of the springs, so bear with me. These bushings here are from Speedway. They're solid bushings. They're a steel bushing. There's no rubber in there. There's no neoprene. There's none of that stuff. This, not neoprene. I did this on the last video. It doesn't matter. Anyways, that plastic stuff. Urethane. These aren't urethane. These aren't rubber. These are just metal on metal, and they have a little grease fitting, so it actually, basically it rides on grease a little bit, I guess. And that is to tighten up the front suspension, take as much play out of it, you know, as far as like the twisting and stuff, tighten it up that way. So I changed those, and then I changed the upper A-frames. So that being said, I am gonna go ahead and go over to the truck, and I'm gonna show you how to safely and easily install the Moroso trick springs without losing an eye. So hang on. So before we get started on this, I just want to take another minute and say springs can be dangerous, man. So if you're doing this, if you've never done it before, there's nothing wrong with doing it. I mean, jump in and do it, but be careful. Think about what you're doing. If you're going to take your old springs out of here, you know, you could just unbolt everything, because the spring generally isn't going to pop out of it. You know, of course, you get your shock out of there first. You could do something as easy as just put a chain around your spring and around the frame or something to keep it from flying out, or, you know, it all depends on how much tension is in there. But it doesn't take a lot of tension to make a spring do damage. So be careful, be really careful with this stuff. So that being said, let's get into it. I said I'd show you this. These are right here, my upper control arms right here. I got these also have the solid bushings. Now, what I said, I wanted to loosen up my front suspension, and I also said I wanted to tighten it up. So I kind of contradicted myself, but not really. Loosening it up means I wanted to move more freely. Tightening it up is I wanted to take the play out of it from the rubber bushings. So you want it to move as free as you can, because you want that weight transfer. All the horsepower that you got, if you're spending horsepower on getting your A-frames to move, because it takes a little bit, you know, it takes energy. You got to do that. You're taking energy to lift the front end a little bit. You're taking energy for all these different things. So anywhere you can help it, just leaves more power to be utilized to go down the track. So that's what I wanted to do. So this also has a solid bushing in it, but these are from Speedway motors right here. I got these these were 50 bucks. They were 50 bucks a piece. These are for a G body. And I believe they are both for the right-hand side. Because these are actually made for like dirt track or whatever. And one A-frame or a control arm is wider than the other one. So they're different. So you have to order two of the same side. And I believe it's the right side in order to get it to work. In fact, I think there's comments if you go to Speedway and you look at the part, in the comments, they say which ones to get. And that's what I did. So 100 bucks for the pair, you know, seems to do okay for me. Replace the U-joint, I mean, not the U-joint, the ball joint. This ball joint is just from a parts store, you know, 26 bucks or whatever it was from a parts store. Again, trying to save money on it. So that's that. The bottom, I already went over that. Those were also from Speedway Motors, G-body parts, because this metric GM stuff all is the same. And you could usually find this stuff for G-bodies. So now we're gonna get to installing the spring here. Let me move this down a little bit. Okay, so what I do, one of the things you wanna look for here is inside of your A-frame, your lower control arm, A-frame, whatever you want to call it, there's a notch in there where the spring sits. So you got on here two sides. You got one side that's flat and one side that is not. See, it's got a little pigtail on it. That little pigtail thing right there has to sit in your control arm properly. If you got one in there on one side and one not on the other, your trucks or car or whatever is going to sit crooked. So now I have the control arm off, completely off, and this is where I said it came into play. If you're going to run, oh yeah, let me go over this. If you're going to run trick springs, running them on the street, in my opinion, is a terrible idea. Because with the weight transfer, the stored energy from these springs and the weight transfer that you get, it doesn't take much acceleration to top out your suspension. And these are not designed for the street, they're designed for the track. So if you're gonna be putting these on to go to the track, you're gonna wanna change your bushings anyways, so take the whole A-arm off. Besides, it's only 2 bolts to pull the whole A-frame down, A-arm, control arm, whatever you wanna call it. It only takes that to pull it down. So what I do, I get it down underneath here, lined up. I have the control arm spring set in there the way that it goes, just like that. A piece of all thread right here. Now, what I've done with this is, what you do, this is a piece of 1/2 inch all thread. Got a nut, just screwed onto it. And I got some washers. I stack up a few of them. I put grease in between the washers, and I put grease on the threads. Now, this goes right in the upper shock hole, just like that. Right into that upper shock hole, through the spring, down into the control arm. And then at the bottom here, I have a plate like this that goes through. Let me get down here. Got a couple of my nuts here. Okay, let's see. Let me grab a board real quick. I don't think, hopefully that's long enough. Or that will work. All right. Okay, so now I have it all together, have the spring through it. Put that over the all thread. Put a nut on the bottom of that all thread. If I can get it started. there. Now what I'm doing here is I'm going to put this nut on the bottom. And then I'm going to put a second nut on and then tighten them on to one another. All right, now they're tight. So now I'll just make sure that everything stays into place like it should. Grab my ratcheting wrench. Start tightening down the awl thread. They're going to be here a while doing this, but now, if you look, the way this is set up, you have your awl thread running through your spring. Now your spring's captured. There's no way that spring is going to come out and fly across the shop or take out your eye or whatever. I don't know why I'm focused on losing an eye on this, but that's what you do. And as you tighten it up, then you'll get up to your bolt for your control arm, put them into the frame, and then you start putting it together. So let me get this tightened up. I'll go ahead and skip ahead here. All right, here's where I'm at with it. You can see I've tightened it up, probably about 10 or 12 inches or so. And this thing comes straight up, you know. Again, the awl thread is in between the spring, so it's not going to go anywhere. And I can move this whole thing around to line it up. There we go. A little bit of finessing. See if I can get the other side in. The back bolt has one of these, they're kind of like it's kind of squished. The nut's kind of squished. So when you tighten it on, it'll stay in place. You don't have to like crank it down super tight. The front one, I used a grade 8 bolt and one with a nylon lock in it. And the reason for it is I want to have as much free movement in the suspension, like I was saying earlier, as I can get. So by having this, I don't have to crank it down super tight. You know, you crank it down to where it's not going to come off. You know, it's almost tight on both of them, and then that gives it as much movement as you can get out of it. Of course, I'm not saying loosen up all the bolts on your suspension, you know, just don't have them cranked down so tight that things won't move. And you know, again, being a race car, not a street car, being a race car and not a street car, then you know you're constantly checking your nuts and bolts on. You have to. you don't want to end up crashing your car, you know, and you certainly don't want to crash into the guy you're racing. You know, that's, to me, oh, that would be the worst. You know, wrecking my truck, that would suck. But wrecking my truck and the guy's car next to me, oh man, I'd have a hard time with that. You know, I mean, it happens, it's racing, but you know. So that's pretty much it. The bolts are in, the nuts are on. I have to tighten them in and do all that with those, but then as far as the rest here goes, you take the spindle, because you already got it in a good spot there. Take your spindle, spindle goes on, throw a nut on it. Not quite ready there, so to tighten this guy down some more. And there you go until it's tight. All right, it's all up into position. All the bolts are on. I just have to tighten them the way I want them tightened and put in the cotter pins and put everything back together. So let me take this out. Oh, dang it, I think I cut myself. Oh well. There we have it. Well, that's pretty much it. I got this all taken in, done. You can see it kind of bent a little bit of the bottom of this when I'm pulling it in, but you know, this is just a piece of all thread. I mean, what do these things cost? 5, maybe 10 bucks? 1/2 inch, you know, a nice solid piece of, for the bottom, you know, to hold it up. And that does it, you know. As far as the parts in there, I use Comp Engineering 3-way adjustable shocks. I believe it's a C2600 is what it says on here. I believe that's the number for it. Speedway upper A-arms, right-hand side. We have, I believe they're right-hand side. Solid bushings on the bottom from Speedway, stock, can't think of the word. Man, I hate it when I can't think of words, but I do it all the time. Stock ball joints, and that's it, that's it. The thing is about the other thing about the trick springs I'd like to say is they are trippy. Man, the first time I had them, I made a pass with these things, it scared the heck out of me. I'm like, whoa, you know, the truck came up and it was just like, it was weird. And it took a couple of runs, you know, I kind of gathered it up and like, okay, and I started making passes and it kept like pulling and I wasn't getting why. And one of the guys on the starting line said, hey, you know, you should tighten up adjust your cowl tracks a little bit, Scott tracks, adjust them a little bit because it's really pulling to the wall when you're taking off. And I go, really? He goes, yeah, it pulls up the left front tire about 8 inches and goes towards the wall. I'm like, I pulled up a front tire. That's what I was concerned with, you know. So anyways, I made some adjustments on the back. I had never had to adjust the back for very much, or, you know, the back, man, let me start that over. I had never had to, wow, adjust the Scott tracks on the back before, because I didn't have enough weight transfer in the truck. And again, this was a little bit more horsepower too. This wasn't the 600 horse motor. This was one that was like probably 455. The last 383 before this one. So doing that on the front really gave it a lot of weight transfer. So that after doing that, I go, you know what? I probably don't need to just have 2 leaves in the back. So I went to 3 leaves in the back and kind of tightened that up a little bit. And it seemed to calm everything down a little bit. I got the traction bars adjusted correctly, and man, it'd go down the track straight. The front end topped out the entire way. And then you get to the end and you let off and you're like, ooh, it's a weird feeling, but you get used to it. So pretty cool, pretty cool. So again, thanks everybody for watching. Hey, I got something. If somebody thinks they could use these springs, these Moroso springs that I got, the part number 47130, one of them, they're brand new. They've never been used. One of them has 1 coil off. The other one doesn't. If somebody wants those, let me know and I will send them to you. You can have them. I will pay for shipping. I'll do all that. I'll take them down to the UPS store. I'll put your address on it and boom, they're yours. If you want them and you live in the United States, you can have them. I'll ship them to you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't. Give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. I'm trying to answer all the comments I possibly can. Sometimes I get a comment and I'll see it kind of come up and I'm like, oh, and I can't answer it. I can't get the comment to come up on any of the different ways that I get onto YouTube. I can't get some of these comments to come up for some reason. And so if you're one of those guys that I haven't answered, I'm sorry. I've been wanting to. I'm trying to answer everybody. All the respectful things, I'm trying to answer them. So anyways, thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for subscribing. I'll see you next time.